And we are live. At least that's what the little dot in the top of the corner says, but we've got to bring in our Facebook community. So in that case, we're going to open it up here and let it breathe. Nice deep breaths while we're bringing in our other communities here.
Got some ASMR going.
And again, one of the Facebook ones kicked me out, so we'll try again.
Come on.
And welcome in, everybody. This is the Huddle Up Pod on Mile High Huddle, sponsored by or powered by Blue Wire Pods. I don't have all that stuff straight yet, Chad. I apologize when you listen to this later. However, I think I'm Scott Kennedy, and that guy over there is Zack Kelberman. And Zack, welcome in. I know there's been some news. It's not quite of the Russell Wilson variety, but there's been at least one signing and possibly rumors of another at right tackle. What's the latest?
Well, first of all, good to see you again, Scott. I appreciate you holding it down for Chad, who's on vacation for another podcast. I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Hope you had a great Monday evening so far. Yeah, the Broncos have signed former Rams and Giants safety J.R. Reed to a one-year contract. He's pretty much a special teams depth guy, nothing major there. He has some familiarity with Ejiro Evero from Los Angeles. It's just one of those moves you make in the offseason. Nothing too fancy about it. Brandon Shell, though, is the second guy. Both stories are up right now on milehuddle.com if you want to read about them. The former Seahawks right tackle visited or will visit with the Broncos, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Obviously, he started the last couple years in Seattle working next to Russell Wilson. There'd be a lot of chemistry there. They need a right tackle. I just find it interesting, Scott, because I wrote another story today. I've been busy on the keyboard that George Payton, he pretty much intimated they're good with Calvin Anderson. They're good with Tom Compton, both of whom they signed to one-year contracts. And he hinted that they're going to wait till the draft where they have a crap load more capital to spend. Then he goes out a couple days later and visits with Brandon Shell after supposedly not making an offer for Lyle Collins. It's so hard to trace and track and plot George Payton's moves, but it seems like there might be one more addition to that room. I don't know that Brandon Shell is an upgrade on what they had last year in Bobby Massey. I don't know that Brandon Shell is an upgrade on Calvin Anderson, but the more the merrier, and hopefully the sum of their parts, 3 middling right tackles can equal 1, average right tackle.
Now, Zack, you've heard me say a zillion times, you especially with someone who's in the business of making deals, do not try and glean anything from what they say publicly. Because you know what, when you said that, you know what I just heard? I'm negotiating with another right tackle. I want to make sure that I'm negotiating from a position of strength. We don't need you. We'd like you, but we don't need you. That's what I heard. I don't know what he said, but that's what I heard. And again, I see Shell seems to be a run blocker. It seems to be that's where he is better at run blocking. He started a bunch of games, so that's nice at least. You're bringing in some experience. He started 61 games over the last 6 years, including 10 last year. So if you were to bring him in, you're getting some experience there. A solid player. Again, you don't have to have all-stars, Pro Bowlers at every position. You said it last night, and I'll just go ahead and repeat it. And that goes for J.R. Reed as well, because I want to say hello to some folks in the chat real quick that have come in and waiting patiently, because there was one comment, I think it was Mile High Mike, that I came in nice and early. He says, does this mean that Kareem Jackson isn't coming back? The signing of J.R. Reed, a special teamer who's gotten some snaps, who's played 15 career games or so, doesn't mean that Kareem Jackson isn't coming back. This doesn't mean Kareem Jackson is coming back, but that doesn't mean Kareem Jackson is coming back. I think they're completely unrelated. So Kareem Jackson might come back. He may not come back, but I don't think it has anything to do with this signing. You're not making that decision based on J.R. Reed. And Dylan, good evening. Appreciate everything you do for us for sure. And Beto, hello there. Good to see you as well. I know I saw the Duchess in here, so let me go. There we go. J.R. Reed. Michaela Parker is in here talking about J.R. Reed. So good evening to you, Michaela. And then Sam Bam coming in with our first super.
Thank you, Sam.
Nice and orange. I like that Broncos orange. We should be able to customize this. You start as you move up, it should get closer to the Broncos colors. And Sam says, good evening, Zack and Scott. Good evening, Broncos country. What's this report about Browning moving to edge rusher? thoughts the Broncos already had that position covered. Go Broncos.
Well, first of all, this might be the J.R. Reed's most famous podcast ever, getting his name dropped so many times. And I agree with you, Scott. It doesn't preclude the Broncos from going after Kareem Jackson, maybe bringing him back. J.R. is a special teams death insurance guy, and Kareem could possibly be a starter on early down. So if they want to bring him back, they can still bring him back. In terms of Baron Browning, this is what Mike Kliss put out there after they signed Alex Singleton, who officially signed his deal today, had his press conference in Denver. He is the new inside linebacker next to Josie Jewell. And by that, I mean Baron Browning is moving to outside linebacker. And he vacillated in college. I get that. He played inside, he played outside. But it smacks, and Scott, you might not get the reference, in regard to the Broncos, of DeMarcus Walker. 2017 second-round pick out of FSU, played really, really well at defensive end. They moved him to outside linebacker, was an abject failure, and all it did was stunt his growth permanently as an NFL prospect. I would prefer the Broncos keep Baron Browning at inside. He seems to be a more dynamic player for a 3-4 defense, but apparently they're trying to recreate what Dallas did with Micah Parsons last year, moving him around and getting a playmaker. If it works out, great, but if it doesn't, you're going to have a lot of people questioning why you took a young up-and-coming player like Browning and moved him to an unnatural position and not let him grow in that single spot.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I did watch Barron play some outside linebacker at the Senior Bowl, and I saw him damn near kill the Michigan fullback / tight end on a rush on that. So I'm like, okay, I like it. Physically speaking, he's similar to Jonathan Cooper. We talk about Jonathan Cooper being a 7th round guy. There were several reasons that he fell down in the bit. I don't, at least based on memory, which isn't what it was. I feel like they're similar size. Like Jonathan Cooper's a little bit undersized for an edge. But again, if you've got that speed and quickness, find a way to get your best players on the field. If it means Patrick Surtain, I need to move him inside to accommodate a different corner because one fell in our laps and we love him and now we play him outside. Okay, find a way to get your best guys on the field. This could also be a call of sorts to Bradley Chubb, to Randy Gregory. Don't sit on your laurels. You guys are making all the money. I'm going to put this kid on your butts, and he's going to be out there pushing you guys every single day. So find a way to get your best players. A little bit of insurance policy there, but good comments, Sam. Appreciate you. Nash coming in with a super. Thank you, Nash. Says, good evening, Broncos country. With Peyton restructuring contracts, do you think the Broncos are going to make another big splash or just add some roster depth?
I want to make one point about Baron Browning. You mentioned getting your best players on the field. I mean, is Alex Singleton a better player than Baron Browning? Is Josie Jewell a better player than Baron Browning? I'm not sure about either. To me, Baron Browning should be locked into a starting spot. Instead, they bring in a guy who's a 2-down run stuffer in Singleton, and they're going to maybe recreate what they had last year with Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, guys that are great on 1st and 2nd down, but struggle on 3rd down. You finally get that dynamic 3-down inside linebacker in Browning, and you're going to move him to outside. I'm not too sure about that, but we'll have to see how it plays out. In terms of what the Broncos want to do, they did clear $12.5 million by restructuring Cortland and Tim Patrick. But we mentioned this yesterday. You need a rainy day fund. You need money and funds to put aside for the draft class, the UDFA class, and just to have in your kitty. You can't exhaust all of your financial revenue or income. So with that being said, they still have, if they want, enough to make one more major signing in this wave of free agency. And who that signing could be, I don't know. Stephon Gilmore is still out there. There's some names. Bobby Wagner is still out there. Maybe that's why Baron Browning's moving outside. Maybe George Payton has something up his sleeve.
Now you got the tinfoil hat going. Now I like your thinking.
It's so comfortable on me, Scott. I can't not wear it. It's really a natural fit. But I don't foresee any major blockbusters. I see maybe Bryce Callahan coming back under 1-year deal. Kareem Jackson coming back potentially. Don't hold your breath, though, for another Russell Wilson, bombshell.
Yeah, I think you're probably done with your $20 million a year guys. And adding roster depth, you don't really need to clear cap space to get depth. As far as, you can pick guys off the scrap heap. It helps. You can pay them a little bit more. But again, the in-season moves, you don't have to have $15 million, $20 million available cap space in order to bring a Kenny Young off the practice squad or Jonas Griffith off the practice squad, or bring in a guy that they're trying to clear some cap space like the Rams did. So we will see. Kathy, hello there. Albert, good evening. And going back to the K-Jack discussion, Joshua Shadow says, "Are K-Jack, Kareem Jackson's days are numbered?" ? He's not a Bronco, so I'd say they're not only numbered, they're right now they're on life support.
Yeah. His future is very dim, I think, as a starter for any team, let alone the Broncos. And if he comes back, it would be, I think, as a situational contributor, more of a veteran mentor for Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson. Those are the future at the position. Those are the long-term fixtures, one of them at least, opposite Simmons. So if K-Jack comes back, it's on a 1-year deal, heavily incentivized, low guarantees, just as a a spark plug.
Cheerleader?
Yeah.
I mean, as a locker room guy, as a glue guy.
Exactly. Glue guy.
A coach in the room, another guy like that. Because we talked about this a lot last night, and it hurts that he's such a liability because I really love watching him play. And hopefully, if he were to come back, he would be a veteran presence and basically a coach in the room, another coach in the room. Doug coming in, he says, "Hey guys, been out. We'll send stars next week." Doug,
it's all good, Doug.
Thank you for all the support.
Yeah.
Don't sweat it, dude. We love you. Appreciate everything. James says, "Good evening, Zach and Scott." Well, good evening. Good evening. And Dave coming in, Dave Millage coming in with the Canadian super. So thank you for the out of country super, even though we're connected and kind of feels like we're brothers anyway. Says, "Evening, Mile High Huddle. Chad, Zach, and Scott are the best. Let's have a great week. P.S. R.I.P. John the Professor Clayton." We didn't mention that.
Yeah,
that hasn't been mentioned on this show. I know because I think I've been on all of them. So Dave, thank you for bringing that, because it's been so busy. I kind of forgot about it, and now I feel even worse for that. So thank you, because what a great human being.
Yeah.
He's one of the few guys I haven't met that are in that level, but it's like I know I'm 1 degree away from him, and everybody raved about John Clayton. So that made me sad to hear. So thanks for the reminder, Dave.
I know we have a little bit of an age gap, Scott, but I remember staying home from school sick and watching John Clayton report on ESPN. He's just an NFL, or he was, unfortunately, NFL media icon, and it's so sad. He died at such a young age. What was he, 61 years old, 64? Yeah. It's a young man.
Low 60s. It's not either way. It was too soon. Too soon. And I agree. I mean, his Sports Center. This is Sports Center ads.
Yeah, I was going to mention.
May have been the undoing of ESPN when they fell in love with themselves too much, but they were really good. That one might have been the best. If you're one of the few people that haven't seen it, just type into Google John Clayton Sports Center
after the podcast.
Just know that this, a peek behind the scenes. He's just this nerdy dude, the professor again, who comes up with all this great information, and then the ad was so awesome. It just really was. So,
Mom, done with my TV hit. it's so Wedding Crashers. Mom, where's the meatloaf?
With the Slayer shirt on. Just
perfect.
Absolutely. And he'd never seen the ponytail before then. I don't think that, it was just awesome. So Dave, again, thank you so much for that. Steve coming in with some stars. Thank you, Steve. You got anything that's on your mind, let us know. And I'm going to hit this one just because I see my name to it. It says, Ryan to the Colts. Yeah, Ryan to the Colts. How do you feel about that, Scott? I'm happy for Matt Ryan. I really am. The Atlanta Falcons roster is a dumpster fire. And they're pouring gasoline on it to just burn it all down. If Matt Ryan had been there, he would have taken an awful beating, and I was afraid of what he'd look like when he's my age, just, in 10 years or so. And he was not going to be around long enough to see that roster come back, especially with the cap hit that he has. It would hinder their ability to build a roster around them. So eat $40 million in dead cap hit, sign your sacrificial lamb in Marcus Mariota, and let him get the hell beat out of him for a year, and come out in 2023 with CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, $150 million in salary cap room, and let's go to work. And by God, I'm going to be cheering my butt off for Matt Ryan in a Colts uniform.
See, that's the problem when you flirt with an upgraded quarterback. You better make sure you land that guy, or else it becomes really awkward with your incumbent. And once Matt Ryan found out that they were pushing for Deshaun Watson, and it seemed like Watson was going to go to Atlanta, never happened. Matt Ryan got the hell out of Dodge. The Colts are an interesting landing spot, but I feel like what Terry Fontenot has done with the roster has been a little questionable. And I only say that because Fontenot was up for the Broncos GM job that went to George Payton. I mean, he took a tight end, top 5 pick. He unloaded Julio Jones. You saddled the team with a $41 million dead money hit with Matt Ryan's contract. Would have been $50 million. They're in trouble, I think. I think the R word is appropriate. Rebuild in Atlanta.
Yeah, and this got it done. This I didn't think they had the stomach to do it. I really didn't. And what this does is it gives them I mean, they're 2-15 might be the ceiling next year. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I don't think they were 7-2 in one-score games last year, and they were terrible. Go look. You can go to Atlanta Falcons reference, and it gives you the rankings for offense, defense, turnovers, everything. They got worse across the board last year, except in one key category: wins. They had a good quarterback. The coaching was an upgrade. They got a Pro Bowl kicker. Cordell Patterson was a huge surprise, and Kyle Pitts hit. After that, dumpster fire, and it's gotten worse. Roster's gotten worse.
I actually kind of like the landing spot, though, for Mariota. He's reuniting with Arthur Smith, his former OC with the Titans. I mean, dual threat quarterback. I don't know.
Can't be your quarterback in 2022. I said, it doesn't matter. This roster is so bad. They have 60. Wait, it's actually they cleared for 7. They have 41, carry the 1 plus 15 and divided by 2. $56 million in dead cap money to Julio Jones and Matt Ryan.
Ouch.
If I lost $56 million, they'd lock me up and throw away the key. That's what Thomas Dimitroff did on a Saturday one day. Good Lord.
But now the Colts, Scott, are the new Broncos. Year to year going for Band-Aid quarterbacks, maybe over-the-hill or washed quarterbacks. It's so nice to be off that ride. It must suck to be on the quarterback carousel.
I know. So let's move on. That's my if you want to see me with a good rant, which is why I've been hitting the halls, because I've talked my voice to death today. Go to my channel, youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy, and there's 45 minutes of me saying what a dumpster fire the Atlanta Falcons are. So if you're into Schadenfreude a little bit, you'll enjoy me ragging on them. Shane Daniels coming with some stars. Appreciate it. He says, hey, Zack and Scott, Albright is saying the Broncos are looking at corner. Who do you think they may target, and how do you think the Broncos have done so far at this free agency?
I give him, honestly, you land Russell Wilson, that's an A for itself, and also Randy Gregory, DJ Jones. I like a lot of the moves they're making, so I'm going to say A- if they can land another right tackle. If they can get a cornerback, I think it's a definite A. In terms of the cornerback they can go after, K'Wan Williams from San Francisco. I don't know if he resigned yet or not, but that could be a slot guy if they want to move on from Bryce Callahan. But Callahan's a guy they're openly negotiating with, they want to bring back. I happen to think, based on the way that George Payton's talking, it's going to be 2 corners even before the draft. So Bryce Callahan and insert player here, whether it's Dante Jackson or Stephon Gilmore, I think you're going to see the Broncos come away with 2 corners to combat what's going on in the AFC West.
And Zach, I think you consciously or subconsciously did what I do as well, which is I combine the trade and free agency as into just off-season moves.
Yeah.
Separate from the draft. So while Russell Wilson was not a free agent to me, it's all kind of the same thing.
It counts.
So you come away with Russell Wilson, a $6 million cap hit on Randy Gregory. Right. Are you freaking kidding me? A high motor diesel engine, a defensive line, and DJ Jones. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with what they've done so far. You filled your biggest need. You guys have heard me say the term bullied a lot about the team last year. Fixed. This team's going to go out there trying to look to smash some people in the mouth. It's been great. As Chad put it, when one of these questions came up last week, he said you opened with a finale is maybe one of the problems. If you were like, okay, we got Randy Gregory, yay. Okay, and then we finish on the last day before you have to have your roster set and say, oh, yeah, by the way, we just added Russell Wilson. You're going absolutely berserk. That happened 2 weeks ago. And now it's kind of like, oh, yeah, Russ, Chad and I, or Zach and I talked about this yesterday. It feels like Russell Wilson's been a Bronco for years already. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks.
And let's not forget that George Payton loves to build the team through the draft, and he still has draft capital to work with even after acquiring Russell Wilson. You have a second left, you have 2 third-round picks, you have day 3 picks. So I'm already so happy with what George Payton has done, and the roster will get even better over the next 6 weeks. It's a good time in Broncos country.
So Leaf comes in also, and he says, Scott, your skin looks a little blue. Must just be the Ryan trade. Blue's the color, my man. I wore red just because I'm like, I got Atlanta United. It felt like a good time to have on in Atlanta United. I'm like, Freddie Freeman hurts. I'm happy. I'm happy for both of them. I really am. Freddie Freeman's the one that hurts the Atlanta sports fans. I think it was more of a slap in the face, and then I'll be done with this unless it comes back up. It was just a third rounder, Zack. Yeah. I mean, I know it was a bad contract, and they're desperate to move him, and they're doing him a favor by sending him to a contender. I know all that, but it's a third rounder, and it wasn't even their higher third rounder. It was their lower one. They've got a higher third rounder in the 70s, and they got their 80s. I mean, they gave him away. But to be fair, I have also said I would trade Matt Ryan for a sack of chips if it meant getting $50 million in salary money back. Which will happen next year. But blue's a color, my man. Chelsea, go Blues. Travis coming in with some stars. Thank you, Travis. So the Eden fellas, I heard they were moving Baron Browning to edge. Not sure why exactly. We hit on this at the very beginning. I know he played there in college. He seemed to be better on the inside. And Zack, you just want to real quick, rapid fire, your 2 Twitter level thoughts on this?
I mean, maybe there's another move coming at inside linebacker. Bobby Wagner, cough, cough. I think that would be great to reunite him with Russell Wilson. Still on the open market, inexplicably, Wagner is. Or they are truly high on the combination of Alex Singleton, a run stuffer, and Josie Jewell, a run stuffer, who they gave a 2-year contract to. We'll have to see how it shakes out. It's too early to tell, but not a fan. Gotta say.
Well, and, Nick is adamant that y'all are going to be playing a lot of dime. Yeah. So linebackers, you may not play with many of them anyway. So let's find a way to make sure that we get Baron Browning on the field. And Steve coming in with some stars. And I meant to say, hey, Gary. Hello, Gary. Appreciate the support, my friend. And Steve coming back in saying, should we bring Kareem Jackson back? And we touched on that a little bit. I like for what he brings with the intangibles. Like I said, I never doubted. We heard heart, passion as far as like lack thereof a lot last year. I never doubted him. Never doubted Kareem Jackson's love of wanting to go out there and throw his head in and play as if every down was his last. Hopefully on a 53-man roster, it's tough. You can find a guy like that, but if you can't, I understand. But I do like what he brings from intangibles.
Yeah, I think this is one guy we differ on. I just, as a liability in pass coverage, a guy who's over the hill, and you have 2 up-and-coming younger players, and definitely one in Caden Stearns. I'm always a fan of getting the young guys the reps and going younger and developing players with upside. There's not much upside left with Kareem Jackson. As a locker room guy, great. As a glue guy, as you put it, Scott, great. I'd love to have him back on a 1-year deal, but as a starter playing all 3 downs, I think that ship is passed.
So... Andrew coming in with some stars. This feels like a new name to me, Zack. Andrew Swanston.
Welcome.
New name. Welcome to the show, and thank you for the support. Appreciate you being here today. Go down just a little bit and see if I feel like there was Travis comes in about 5 minutes ago to 37, but I felt like we had another super that I hadn't seen yet.
Well, if I can just take a second, Scott, because Bearded Bronco's been trolling me on Twitter as well. Zack, you need to stop making predictions in free agency. You've yet to get one right. Apparently, you don't watch the podcast, Bearded Bronco, because I was among the few, the real few, talking about Randy Gregory being a possibility at pass rusher for the Broncos, and not Von Miller, and not Chandler Jones, and not Hassan Reddick, and not Jadeveon Clowney. Because I have experience covering the Cowboys, I saw what kind of player Randy Gregory is, and I say keep an eye on him. He screams off the edge. He's a type of player that Evero wants to bring to this defense and kind of mold the defense around. So I'll score that one as correct in my book. But
yeah, after that,
who's keeping track?
I never heard the name DJ Jones before. There's not a whole lot of guys swinging and hitting on a lot of these. But yeah, Zack did say. Chandler Jones, I think if let me you can back me up on this. You lie, I'll swear to it. I feel like you said Chandler Jones was your number one pick for this spot, but keep an eye out for Randy Gregory.
Yeah, Chandler's the guy I wanted, and Chandler's the guy that everyone in the Broncos media orbit was parroting as the number one priority for George Payton. Didn't work out. I think he was out of the Broncos price point, and I just said keep an eye on Randy Gregory. No one's talking about him. Everyone is always talking about his baggage and his troubles. That's behind him. He's a good football player, and the Broncos got a good football player.
Travis Weber says, good evening, Zach and Scott in Broncos country. John Clayton was an icon in the sports reporter world. My dad was 58 when he passed. He is a reason I am a Broncos fan. Sorry for your loss, Travis. Moving on, he says, how do you feel about the tackle from Seattle? Wasn't their line worse than ours last season? The line is more than just a collection of its parts. As one guy, let me put it this way. Chris Lindstrom for the Atlanta Falcons is damn good at right guard. Their offensive line was god-awful. That doesn't mean that Chris Lindstrom was bad. He was good. It's a unit, and you're pretty much only as good as your weakest link on offense, because one guy can blow his assignment and 10 guys doing their jobs just end their play. Zach, I don't know if you've heard me tell this before. When I first started covering football, I asked a two-way player in high school. He's playing both sides. So what do you like better? He says, I like defense. Nobody says defense. I said, why do you like defense? He says, because on defense, I control the play. I can end it. And I was like, that makes sense. You can have 10 guys fall on their butts on defense, but if I go and make the tackle, sack the quarterback, we win. It's exactly the opposite on offense. You can have 10 guys do their jobs and one guy blow it and your play's dead. That's why every single rule over the last 50 years has gone to benefit the offense, because it's hard to play offense. So how do you feel about the tackle from Seattle? I know, Zach, you hit on this at the top of the show. Just, quick couple of thoughts on Brandon Shell.
Travis, I sympathize because my dad was 68 when he passed, so it's tough going through that. But Brandon Shell, you hit on something really important, Scott. You mentioned his run blocking being better than his pass blocking. And this is now, if they sign him, the third lineman they have brought in that specializes in run blocking.
And so they did the same on defense too, Zach. There was a pattern emerging.
The trenches were not owned by Denver last year, and I think the trenches will be owned by the Broncos this coming season. But it means great things for Javonte Williams, not just Russell Wilson. If they bring aboard Shell, they also brought in Eric Tomlinson, a blocking tight end. So if you have Javonte Williams on your dynasty team, do not get rid of him. Shell, I mentioned this earlier. Based on what I've seen out of him, he was a former Jets tackle, played a couple years in Seattle. He's not the worst, but he's far from the best. He ranked 51 according to PFF out of I think it was 78 or 80 players. So maybe average or a little below average. I think he's comparable to Bobby Massey, but the Broncos can still do better. And if they do sign him and they have Calvin Anderson, they have Tom Compton, to me, it shouldn't preclude them from bringing in a high-priced rookie as well. They need that blue chipper there. I understand you can't have a star at every spot, but I just don't want the fate of Russell freaking Wilson being left in the hands of Brandon Shell or Calvin Anderson or Tom Compton. Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, I've said that. I think I said this morning that the other two guys, Calvin Anderson and Tom Compton. Tom Compton. Those feel like 3 and 4 to me. You're still looking for 2, for your starters at tackle. Kevin G comes in. He says, kind of off topic, and I like this question. Gives me a chance to talk nuts and bolts a little bit. But why does the NFL hate smaller edge rushers? Guys like Elvis Dumervil was 5'11", and he was a beast. I love the phrase that Chad uses on here, that he's the exception that proves the rule. I think of it a little like boxing. You can have a guy like Mike Tyson, but typically that reach advantage is a big reach. So it's not necessarily that he's short. It's that usually your arms are shorter if you are short. And if I'm using a rip move or a swim move or anything like that, or trying to keep the other guy's hands off me when I'm shorter, it's tougher to do when he can reach me first. So it's more about reach than it is about height. It's just usually reach is a production of height. They kind of go hand in hand. Good question though, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think the what Dumervil hates is fax machines, but that's neither here nor there. Smaller means you do less, and I think for NFL teams, if they're going to pay these guys millions of dollars, they want these guys to be Swiss Army knives if they can. So if you have a smaller edge rusher, he's really limited to just rushing off the edge. He doesn't really help in run defense. He probably won't play special teams. I mean, speed's one component, but you want a guy that can play all 3 downs. That's why I think these smaller edge guys are being kind of faded out in the new
Yeah,
NFL.
I'm sorry I was interrupting. I'll apologize for that too. And then I wasn't very clear when I was interrupting. So that's 2 strikes. You're more limited to being speed rusher, where you're basically, if you can't use your hands because his hands are there first, you're limited to just being a speed rusher. I can't use my hands to control the guy, dispatch, like I said, rip, swim, or whatever, set the edge, because whoever wins that battle with the hands and gets that leverage first is typically going to win. And that becomes really hard to do if the offensive tackle can get his hands on you first. That's why they measure arm length. That's one of the big things they do when we're talking about, and with tackles, can I just give a guy a shove as he's trying to speed rush me around the edge? And if all I have is one weapon in my arsenal as an edge rusher, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Chase Wilner says, good mock this morning, Scott. Well, thank you.
My curiosity's peaked now. Let's see the mock, Scott.
Oh, I have to look it up. What did we do?
Give me the first
Josh Pascal was the first pick. If you start talking for a little bit, I'll bring it up.
I mean, I want to see your mock. I'm really interested in seeing that. So I'm glad Chase brought it up. Real quick, while you pull that up, I saw a comment from Michael Ronk. Wow, you're giving me a brain freeze right now. Michael Ronk. God, what's wrong with me tonight? Anyway, Michael says, I love you. I like your shirt, Zack. Coaching. Guys, if you want the shirt, any other merchandise, real quick plug, huddleuppod.com. Get yours right now. I'm so sorry for doing that to you, Michael. I have mad love for you. But yeah, get your shirt right there if you want it.
So our mock this morning was 64 was edge out of Kentucky, Josh Pascal. Number 75, a cornerback out of UTSA, Tariq Woolen. That he of the 6'3", 6'4", 4.26 corner at UTSA. Miss on a guy that's 6'4", running 4.3 if you're going to miss. At 96, we took a wide receiver because he was not going to be there at 96. We actually got a question. He's not going to be there, and why would you take him? I'm like, well, you just answered your own question, because he's too good for the 96 spot, and we're not going to pass him up in this mock. Christian Watson is a beast. He's 6'4", 11'3", standing broad jump, like a 40-inch vertical, running in the 4.3s. I know it was a super fast track, but even if you round that up to 4.5 at 6'4", love Christian Watson. Love him. Number 115, I got this pick too. I took Matt Waletzko at 115. He is a 6'8", skinny. Zach, how stupid does this sound? And I'm not saying we're stupid, just how stupid does it sound? He is 315 pounds, and we were knocking him for being too thin.
Doesn't make sense. Make it make sense.
He is. He's thin. He's a lean 315, but that just sounds insane. 315 pounds. He's a little light in the britches. What?
You had me sold on tackle, Scott.
I love him. I really do. And then Nick took the 116 and took Cam Jurgens, center prospect from Nebraska.
I love it. Prioritizing defensive backfield, prioritizing offensive line. I would not be opposed to that at all. We got Dennis Woods, $2 super. Thank you so much, Dennis, for joining us as always. Scott, he wants to know, is Wagner asking for too much money or just fading into obscurity? I think he's trying to get the most money he can. This is probably his last bite at the apple, so to speak. He's still a very, very productive player, set career highs. I heard Dallas is making a big push for him. He's probably trying to squeeze money out of Jerry Jones. I haven't heard the Broncos being interested, and I feel like after bringing back Josie Jewell, tendering Jonas Griffith, and bringing in Alex Singleton, they're pretty set at inside linebacker until next month.
It feels like none of those guys are on enough contract to prohibit you from saying, okay, thanks, but we're waiving you anyway. It was, thank you for having a cup of coffee, and we didn't even get your name on the locker. This is he asking for too much money? He has every right to ask for as much as he possibly can. He's in no hurry. He's not in any rush. If he misses OTAs or training camp as an old guy, even coming in late, the other players would understand. They're like, you get OG days. He could sign in August and be just fine. So he's not in any hurry to go out and say, okay, I got to have a job. What are my 5 best offers, and I'll pick that one. No, he could have 5 offers right now and say, I don't like any of those. I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm not in any rush. So he is going to look for a good deal, and he might fade, but he also has the ability to pick who he wants to. He can go play on a smaller contract. I mentioned this about Melvin Gordon last night, Zach. He could say, I want to go play with the Bills. I want to go play with the Colts. I want to go play with whoever that's a contender if I don't get that big money deal.
Yeah, I don't think Bobby Wagner's rushing to join OTAs. If he has to sit out and through the spring, through the summer, and still sign with a contending team, so be it. We got DA Dub hopping in, 1999 Super. Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate it as always. What's up, fellas? What is up with Kenny Young? This is a good question I want to talk about. I would have wanted him back over Jewell. Thoughts on that? And what slot cornerback would you want with the cap space we have? I want Bryce Callahan back. When he's healthy again, he's a Pro Bowl, all-pro talent. You have to pray he stays healthy, but he would come super cheap. He knows the system. He knows the players around him, so that's the guy. Kenny Young, this is one guy I wanted to talk about when we got a question, what former players could the Broncos bring back? We mentioned Bryce, we mentioned Kareem Jackson, but Kenny Young, they brought back Josie Jewell. They didn't bring back Alexander Johnson. Kenny Young arguably had the best season of any Broncos inside linebacker last year. At least he ended the season healthy. He was dynamic. He
starts.
I mean, it's setting the bar super low, but that's what it is. He's a sideline guy, full of energy, full of life, and he knows Ejiro Evero coming over from the Rams.
That might not be a benefit, Zach.
That has to be why he's not coming back. There has to be a obvious disconnect there. Maybe Evero said to Nathaniel Hackett and George Payton, he's not the guy I want. I want Josie Jewell. I want Alex Singleton, and I want Jonas Griffith. I think that's what's going on with him, honestly.
Yeah, there might not be he left there. He didn't have all the nicest things to say about why he left. Came to Denver, and his first press conference was not all that positive. So, an attitude adjustment, a little humbling on it could be good for him. And he wasn't so good that you're like, oh yeah, we're willing to put up with that.
Yeah.
So based on he said some things that you just don't say in a press conference. And I don't know that he's good enough to be able to do that. Broncos guy 86 is, what do you think of the move with Browning to OLB? That's kind of a loaded question because it's stated like a fact. I'm not convinced it's going to happen until I see it happen. I think it's good to make him get him some reps there and have some cross training and versatility. But as far as I'm concerned, until I see him moved, it's chatter right now. These are considerations. These are things we can think of. What do I think about the possibility of a move of Branding to outside linebacker to edge? I think it's interesting. I think it gives you a little bit better depth there. And if you're going to start with Josie Jewell and you mentioned the new signing, Singleton, really good in run stuffing, then you find another way to help get Browning on the field.
I just think it's kind of stupid to pick up Chubb's $14 million option and then pay Randy Gregory $70 million and then move Baron Browning to outside linebacker when you have Jonathan Cooper, when you have Malik Reed. Just leave him at inside. I'm with Scott, though, in the sense that, experiment with him in OTAs and minicamp, maybe training camp, see what he can do. Maybe he can be a dynamic weapon a la Micah Parsons, but I prefer to let one player grow into one spot. I just have bad nightmares about DeMarcus Walker still to this day. I lead a really sad life, and I don't want that to happen to Baron Browning. He looked really, really good as a rookie, and they haven't had that dynamism. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly for the first time. And he brings that to the table. I'm a big fan of Baron Browning. I hope he stays at ILB, but we'll see.
Yeah, speaking of big fans, we're big fans of Tina Fairchild. Tina, thank you for the stars. Says, good evening, gentlemen. Do you have much of an opinion on the punter from San Diego State? He has a strong leg, and I feel we need to improve there. As much of an opinion as I could have on any punter, which isn't much. I've heard of him. I don't remember his name. It's like Ariza or something close, but Arima, I don't know.
I'm not trying this again.
We butchered this yesterday too. The fact that I can even come close means this guy must be pretty good because I don't care about punters. I don't. When I went out and played football as a soccer player, I went out to play wide receiver. They made me kick. I'm like, can I come play defensive back then? And they're like, yeah, okay. You're not going to play much. I'm like, that's okay. I just want to practice. Punters and kickers are really not part of the damn team. So I don't have a huge opinion on him. If he's available as a seventh, and you want to get an upgrade, I think he would be an upgrade. And you're a little expensive with your specialist right now anyway. About $2.5 million, I think, last year on your punter. That a nice cost-controlled seventh round guy might be pretty nice to have. And thanks for the stars, Tina.
I mean, when we're talking about starting Calvin Anderson at right tackle or Asang Bassi at slot corner, I'm not talking about spending draft picks on a punter. If he's there as an undrafted free agent, which I don't think he will be, that's great. I maybe take a flyer, but I'm cool with Sam Martin as well. $2.5 million, even for a punter, I'm willing to sweat that. You got to address the other needs. Punter to me comes like dead last.
Leaf coming in here real quick, saying I'm enjoying the dynamic. Hope Scott and Zach becomes regular. It
Stay
could,
tuned.
it could. But he's talking about the salary cap managing and massaging and how it ends up being a flexible number. So the long story short is the numbers that you see in the press. Let's take Von Miller's, for example, of what was it, 6 years, $120 million. There's two numbers you need to know: length of years and guaranteed money. That's it. The rest is nonsense. The rest is how you end up with a manageable cap. His guaranteed money was basically 53 million, and all that was paid into it's crossed 6 years, but his guaranteed money ends up turning into a 3-year, $53 million contract. Now, how do guys get around like this? I explain it kind of this way. If I give Zack a 10-year contract with no salary, I know this is impossible. It's just easier math. With no salary, but I give him a $100 million signing bonus today, that counts $10 million on the salary cap for the next 10 years. If I cut him after 5 years, I incur a $50 million dead cap number that year. So I cannot use $50 million if I have the $200 million total cap. Now I only have $150 to spend because I already paid Zack $50 million extra dollars, and I have to account for that somehow. But basically, I owe Zack, I was paying him $10 million a year for 10 years in base salary. He had 3 years left on his contract, so I owed him $30 million on his original contract. I could give him a $30 million signing bonus now and then sign him to a 10-year contract worth $31 million. And now his salary cap number is 3.1 per season. So I took him from 10 million a year to 3.1 a year by spreading that stuff out. The problem is eventually all that comes due. The Bills are going to have a cap hit on Bond's number when those 3 years run out. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing or too, your eyes didn't glaze over too much. I actually enjoy the topic, but that doesn't mean that I didn't just bore half of you to death.
I was actually zoning out because I was thinking of how I'm going to spend my hypothetical millions you were talking about. It sounded really good, man. 30 million, I'm cool with that. But if anyone doesn't believe that the salary cap is people say it's not a myth or whatever, it's not fake, but look what the Chiefs did a couple years ago. But most recently, look what the Saints did. They were like $100 million over, or 90 or 80 or whatever, and they made so much cap space. They were right in there to trade for Deshaun Watson. If you want to make a deal happen, if you want to move money around, you can do it. Real cash is the actual necessity, not the salary cap.
Yeah, and that's when we talked about when does ownership matter, because when I need to take Russell Wilson's the $50 million that he's owed on a contract and turn it into a signing bonus so I can extend him 6 years, I need $50 million in cash from my owner. So whoever's got that kind of money has an advantage when they can do stuff like that for sure.
I'm also cool with this.
Howie came in with some stars on there. Zack is the
1 year
franchise
fully guaranteed. I'm cool with the franchise tag, baby. Franchise tag me, transition tag me.
That's not enough. Or we have to go like all pod them. Broncos pod them for some reason. But Howie coming in with some stars. Thank you so much, Howie. Howie frickin' Day. I just like saying that name. Him and Flazify. I like saying Flazify too, one of our newer contributors. So what's up, y'all? Even throwing a y'all out there just for me. AFC West is smoke. Expecting to see a shootout in the West. Best D wins. And this one's interesting for me, Zack, because people are like, how's anybody going to come out of the West when they're going to beat each other up? Well, so what? You go 3-3, there's 11 more games. You go 3-3 and you go 8-3 in your other games because you're that much better than everybody else. 11-6 will get you in the playoffs. So there's not enough divisional games. It's not like baseball where you're playing 70% of your games in division. You're playing a third of them in division. So it's not that big a deal to me as far as how good is this division. It's a little bit less of an advantage, say, the Tennessee Titans. But then come playoff time, Tennessee Titans don't know how to play because they haven't played anybody. They're going to get their butts kicked again. You're going to be, the iron sharpens iron type of thing. The games are going to be so much more fun. So looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to some of these division games for sure.
It's best D and best coaching, baby. And I have no qualms about Nathaniel Hackett being better than Josh McDaniels. We all know how bad McDaniels is. And I don't think he'll have a problem vanquishing Brandon Staley. It's going to come down to Nathaniel Hackett versus Andy Reid. And until he dethrones the Chiefs, I mean, you got to give Kansas City its due. And I think the Broncos will go toe-to-toe. They're going to end the streak this year. They can play for the division as far as I'm concerned, having Russell Wilson and having those weapons. It comes down to defense for sure, comes down to offense for sure. But what the Broncos lacked in these matchups the last 5 years now is coaching. Hopefully Nathaniel Hackett fills that void, and I think he will.
So I have a 14-minute gap in my chat that's a little odd. So I'm missing 47 until 02. So let me look on the backside. I want to make sure we're not missing any supers. The one that I know I'm missing was Travis Weber saying, off-topic question, did I see the article about Chipper's disapproval of Freddie leaving for LA? I saw the headline. And Chipper was a lifelong Brave, took a little bit less money to stay. So I did see the headline.
We got this one too.
One again. So anywhere in that neighborhood, Zach, between 45 and 02, I don't have. There's a gap for me, including probably this one.
Yeah, John Clay Eventing hopping in, $9.99 super. Thank you so much, John. Hope you're having a great evening. He says, evening, gents. I hope that the Broncos draft either linebacker Chad Mims or linebacker Troy Anderson. Both would be incredible. Anderson is a Luke Kuechly-like player. Thoughts? What do you think, Scott?
Am I thinking he means Chad Muma?
Yeah.
Chad Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming, 6'3", 240 pounds, 4'6", 40, 4.28 shuttle with a 7.06 and a 40-inch vertical at 240 pounds. John. That's what I figured. John Clay, we got you. I always said that if I couldn't either beat you up or outrun you, we were going to be really good friends. And Chad Muma could jump over me too. Not only could he run me down and kick my butt, he could just jump over me. And it's crazy, that level of athleticism. That said, I actually like Troy Anderson a little better. When I watched them both doing the same things at the same time at the Senior Bowl, Troy Anderson, who also put up crazy numbers at the combine, let me read his off for you: 6'3.5", 243 pounds, 4.42 in the 40, 36-inch vert, and a 10.8 standing broad jump. And then just pure football player. Nick told me he's one of Nick's favorite players too, that I think he was a running back and all-conference player of the year as a running back as a freshman, and then all-conference defensive player of the year as a linebacker. Dude, that's a guy at one of my teams. So I like them both, and I don't know that Troy Anderson is going to be around in a spot where you're going to want to take him.
That's a really good answer, which I agree with. We got a newer name, I believe, Scott, Dustin Hitshoe. So if that's a newer name, we appreciate you hopping in here, Dustin. Welcome to the manger. He asked, restructure Garrett Bowles equals more cap space. What do we think? I mean, you have enough wiggle room right now. If you take a hammer to Bowles' deal, what are you accomplishing? I mean, what are you setting aside for? If they plan to go after Bobby Wagner and Stephon Gilmore, then fine. But I don't think that's what George Paton wants to do. They've already restructured 2 players. I would let that sleeping dog lie in Garrett Bowles and get by on what you have. I wouldn't go there just yet.
All right, here's the part of the restructuring that we didn't really talk about and how you can get away with it. Not only does it take cash, but it also takes guys you want to hold on to at pretty similar prices. You can lower the cap hit a little bit, but when you're talking about Garrett Bowles, you're talking about, let me see here. He's got 1, 2, 3 years left on his deal already, and his cap hits are 21, 18, and 20. So he's a $20 million a year guy. With a dead cap this year of 29, next year it's 8. So in this case, you start asking yourself the Graham Glasgow question. Take less money or I'm going to cut you. I don't know. I don't think Garrett Bowles right now is a $20 million offensive tackle.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play his way into the contract, you don't restructure those guys. You wait until their dead cap number is manageable and you move them and you move on from them. And that's how you recoup 75, 80% of that money. Or in the case of Glasgow, you give them a pay cut if they want to, that's the conversation that was had. Graham Glasgow was a $16 million guard. It made him top 3. Do you feel like you got top 3 money for him? No, there was no way he was playing this year on that contract. He knew it. He knew it. So he re-signed. He said, okay, I'll take a new deal. I'll take the pay cut because if you cut me, this is a deal I'm going to get on the open market anyway, and I'd rather stay here. And good for him. Good for him. So Do you restructure Bowles when you owe him about $50 million right now? How bad do you want to keep him? That becomes a question. Do I want to turn some of that money? Do I want to turn in some of that money into a $50 million signing bonus and move him out 5 years? No, I don't. I don't.
I think they're taking a wait and see approach in 2022 with Garrett Bowles. They have a new system, they have a new line coach, and Bowles is coming off, I would say, mostly a good year, but he had some of the old Garrett Bowles moments. And like you mentioned, Scott, if you restructure him now, you're taking away that out in his contract for next year. So they're going to take just a 1 year at a time approach. I want to get to it's Dolph because he was one of my favorite rappers. He got tragically gunned down a few months ago. I really hate that happened. R.I.P. Young Dolph, but.
We're not speaking about the same Dolph.
Young Dolph. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. Dolph to me means Dolph Lundgren. No. I will break you.
Nah, definitely two different people.
Is Dolph.
But this Dolph's asking about Billy Turner, and my answer to that, Scott, has been there, done that. To me, he's more of a natural guard. There's a reason why the Broncos let him get away. They need a tackle, a pure tackle. Miss me on Billy Turner.
Andrew Baker coming up with some stars says he loves the Zack and Scott show. We love you too,
Appreciate
Andrew, because you flatter us. I'm a sucker for flattery. I'm insecure. You flatter me, I'm like, oh, thank you. You think I'm pretty. So thank you, Andrew. I certainly appreciate it. And Patrick saying what we all think here, Patrick McCracken, Russell effing Wilson. Freaking Wilson. Yeah, I like it. I like it, Patrick. Appreciate it.
At least your skin's no longer blue, Scott. It's red from being flattered so much.
Yeah. I actually changed the background to like sandstone because my monitor, I overcompensate. I've got like a 30-inch monitor here, and it was flooding everything blue. So, and these bright lights, they shine my forehead. We know. Looks like Peyton Manning. I know. So,
I'm just scrolling through the comments here. If you guys, we're gonna wind down in about 10 minutes. If you guys have any last minute questions, supers, comments, complaints, get them in there now, and we'll try to address them.
So I think this may have been an age question here for you, Zach. One of those age checks.
Yeah.
Jasmine is probably closer to your age. US Dave is probably closer to my age.
Two different buckets on this podcast.
Yeah, but that's okay. I said Dolph. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to Dolph? What happened to Dolph Lundgren?
He's alive and well. The rapper is not so much. Michael Ronquillo. I got it, kind of. I don't know why I can't say it tonight. Awesome show tonight, Zack and Scott on the Mile High Huddle. Let's ride, go Broncos. I love that slogan now for Denver, man. I just love it. Let's ride. It's just perfect for.
Let George cook, not let Russ cook. Let George cook.
Yeah.
I like that one.
T-shirt coming soon.
Let him cook. Now, kind of to go back to where we started, just kind of wrapping up if you happen to be joining us, because usually the viewers kind of keep going right up and then you feel bad for pulling the plug. You're like, we got the most people watching. We had the whole show. Now we're leaving. We talked about J.R. Reed, the new safety coming in. Zach, quick thoughts on him before we get going?
Depth guy. He's a warm body. Obviously they have Caden Stearns. They have Jamar Johnson. They even tendered and brought back P.J. Locke. To me, J.R. Reed is someone they have familiarity with. From Evero and their time in with the Rams together. Special teams, backup. Nothing major there.
Yeah. And the right tackle that we teased in the heading was Brandon Shell from the how exactly have the Denver Broncos been linked to him? Is this a strong link, do you think? Is it a fairly strong possibility, or is this just paper talk?
Well, it's, Jeremy Fowler, I think, is one of the better reporters in the business, and he said Monday the Broncos are visiting with Brandon Shell, and if all goes well, they'll probably end up signing him. But Fowler also noted that Seattle wants Shell back, and they're trying to negotiate a new contract with him. So the Broncos have some competition, and I'm going to drop the article I wrote in the comment section. Anyone who wants to read it, I'm going to put it in there for you. It's on the website right now.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to hit a question that I like real quick from Clifton, kind of getting into my wheelhouse here. So Tyler Smith, Abraham Lucas, or Darian Kennard at pick 64. For me, this is easy. If he's there at 64, Abraham Lucas is my guy. Again, you guys are going to say, oh, you're going to talk about Spencer Brown again. Yeah, I am. I'm not quite on the Spencer Brown level of hype I am with Abraham Lucas, but I really like him. I don't think he's getting talked about. Of course, I don't listen to what everybody else says either. So I don't know what other people are saying about him. I am talking about him as I think he should be in the discussion of knocking on the door of the first round. I love his base strength. It's just we've shown the clips on here before, but he gets rocked back, which usually means somebody has to take 2 steps back in order to regain themselves, which means you're stepping on your quarterback, and he just holds his base, and his core strength is strong enough that he's able to he's 6'6", 330 pounds with a 4.92 40 with that type of athleticism and core strength. Yeah, I'm a fan. So I liked Abraham Lucas the best out of those 3 at the Senior Bowl and coming out of the Senior Bowl, and coming out of the combine, I feel the same way.
I think he's a definite possibility if he's on the board for being the Broncos pick at 64. And I think, as I mentioned yesterday, you did a good job summarizing him, Scott, but I think he's a good fit for the scheme and with what Nathaniel Hackett and Butch Barry want to do in Denver. So if Lucas is the pick, I'd be more than happy with that. I'd be actually elated because they're addressing their biggest need at right tackle, and they're doing so with a blue chip prospect. But that's if he's still available.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough. We've mentioned the fact that you've got a couple extra picks, and if you like him or someone like him, and you start getting a little antsy, starting a little happy feet, find somebody you want to send him a 6-rounder to move up 5 spots, and just make sure you nab him. I would love Abraham Lucas at right tackle for the Denver Broncos with that pick. I would go A+, plus. Be a great pick.
We got another newer name, I believe, Kaimana Swan Merritt. I'm assuming I nailed that, but if I didn't, I definitely apologize. We appreciate you hopping in, and if you're a new viewer to the program, welcome. They want to know, should we also keep Melvin Gordon or look elsewhere like the draft? Real quick, my answer to that is no. Y'all know how I feel about Melvin Gordon. You don't need him. You have Javonte. He's the truth. He's the future. You have Mike Boone. He's a very capable backup. If you use him, commensurate to his contract, Scott, you always like to point that out. And you can add a third guy in the draft. They're a dime a dozen in this day and age. I'm not spending money on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, it depends on do I want Mike Boone or not? If I don't think Mike Boone can be my number 2, then I'd like to have Melvin Gordon come in and be the backup, the splitting carries. And again, to me, it's not. It was a pretty close to a 50-50 split last year in touches between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. That slider needs to go, total touches to the running backs needs to go to about 65 to 70 this year. I don't care who's coming in after him, but the pay should then be commensurate with the workload. And last year, a 2nd-round pick, he obviously wasn't going to be paid as much. He hasn't earned that 2nd contract yet, but the pay was not commensurate. The 3rd highest paid running back on the roster was Javonte Williams, at least on the active roster, with Boone being 2 and Melvin Gordon being number 1. I don't want to see that happen again. So if Melvin Gordon wants to come back for a song, great. It's going to be, but it'll be $3 million, $3.5 million, and a non-guaranteed. If I don't like it, we'll get rid of him.
Yeah, it depends on the song. If I don't like the tune, I'm not listening. But Leroy, the Cowboys are stupid, Leroy, but they're not that stupid. There's a reason they got rid of Lyle Collins. That's because they want to start Terrence Steele. So they're not going to give him up. The Broncos have to look elsewhere. But I like the thinking, though. Stay aggressive and stay looking for an upgrade because it's far and away for me. Talk about edge, talk about slot corner, this and that. It's far and away the Broncos' biggest need heading into the draft.
So James Cook gets a lot of discussion on here, and he's not quite the athletic freak that we think he is but that to me isn't necessarily as important. I'm trying to spit out here. I think James Cook might be a punt return candidate. He's got that body type also. I wanted to look up and see if he'd done any return work at Georgia in his career there while I am stumbling and bumbling around my keyboard here. But James Cook is a 4th, 5th round guy. I don't think he's going to go much higher than that. Good burst, so people think he's faster than he really is, but it's quick, not necessarily straight line fast, which is more important, frankly, in the game of football. And he could be an option as a return guy. I mean, he had 70 career receptions, so we know he's got decent hands. Kick and punt returns. Here we go. He did some kick returning, only 5 his first 2 years, no punt returns in his career. I'd like to give him a shot. If I had him on my team, I'd put him back there and see what he's got because he's 5'11", 190. That's cornerback size, and guess who usually returns kicks? Slot receivers and cornerbacks in the NFL.
And how much would Cook make in his rookie season? Like $1 million?
300,000?
If that. So I'd rather pay him that than pay
Whatever
Melvin Gordon.
is.
$3 or $4 million. So I'm right there with you, Michael. Go for running back in the draft. You have Javonte, you'd have Mike Boone, then you have a player like Cook. That's a pretty solid threesome, in my opinion.
Jeremy, let Cook cook. Let them all cook. If everybody's cooking, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. We need one. And speaking of which, on that note, I'm watching the counter at 59:59, 1 hour on the nose.
Time to go.
Zach, it's probably about time we get going.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Scott, for stepping in. Had a lot of fun with you again on this podcast. Thank you all for tuning in with us on this Monday, March 21st evening in Broncos country. We're off tomorrow, back on Wednesday evening, same time, same place. Until then, though, guys, follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter for all your Broncos news, analysis, rumors, transactions, and up-to-the-minute information at Mile High Huddle. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL if you want a coaching shirt like I'm wearing, or a shirt, oh wait, he's not wearing one like Scott's wearing, or any other merchandise. Go to huddleuppod.com and get yourself some right now, and facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. Like that page, follow that page. Guys, if you haven't, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every month. But if you can't do those things, please do these 3 things. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Yeah, and Jeremy says, rest the voice. Until tomorrow morning, we'll be back for Broncos for breakfast with Nick. And Nick has to duck out early, so I have to carry the last 15 or 30 minutes. So I'm going to need your help. Please come in. 7:30 Mountain Time, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. That's too much math. We actually get a lot of international viewers on that show, which is kind of fun, proving that Broncos country is not a geographic location, but a state of being. So love it. We will see y'all tomorrow morning on Broncos for breakfast. If not, have a good evening.
We're back on Wednesday night again, guys. Again, same time, same place. As always, take care and go Broncos.